Native of Arizona, lived there my entire life. We have some businesses here in Indiana and a residence in Avon, Indiana, that we've had for about 5 years. But most of our roots are in Arizona. Families from there, AME Electrical Contracting, our business is from there. We've been in business for 40 years, second generation owner of the business, third generation electrician. Started racing around 24, I want to say like 04, somewhere around there. Sprint cars, just Manzanita, never raced anything before, went out there, raced that deal, CRA, Southwest type stuff. Never really went east of Texas until around, I think, 2015 or 16 when we'd start coming out here to the midget week side of things and run the sprint car and put people in the race car, and kind of got our foot in the door with that. As far as how the racing began, it was more of my dad was a fan. He would go and hang out, knew some of the guys. I just started hanging out with some of the guys, from the stands into the pits, and bought a roller from a guy one day. We were drinking beer and $4,500, bought a roller from him. We didn't have an engine, didn't have a shop, didn't have a trailer or anything, had that. And then me and Todd Underwood at the Underwood and Reinbold Underwood Motorsports, did a bunch of side jobs and ended up buying a motor. And then we just went out one day and never raced a thing in my life, just fired it off and started competing. First time I fired it up was pretty intense. I remember continuing to wave off the push truck and finally realized the push truck still wasn't behind me because the thing was idling so fast, right? And again, just never have raced anything before. It was just an odd feeling. I honestly don't remember the first race. I would say it probably didn't go very well. You had to put the long caution yellow tape on behind the back, and they had a whole rookie orientation and stuff like that. And back then in the West Coast, like CRA was legit, right? The Arizona Sprint Car Association was legit. There was 40 sprint cars showed up every night. It was 360, but still it was very competitive, really good race car drivers. So I think it took us a good solid year to get going. Second year, we were right there, competing, at a higher level, in the top 5, stuff like that. Almost won a race, things like that. So we progressed pretty quickly, but kind of plateaued. It was never really my main focus. My main focus was building a business, the AME Electrical Contracting. So it was, we raced on the Saturday and we worked, nights in the shop, and it was more of a thing to do, a hobby. Less, this is more of a business now. And so Kentucky Fried Chicken, delivery driver for about 3 days. I thought it would be funny to take a bite out of the biscuit as I delivered on the way to the delivery. And then when I got back, the manager chewed my ass out and said, "You can't do that." I said, "Won't happen again." So then I decided to do it again. I came back and I got terminated immediately. And that's when I discovered I probably wasn't a very good employee. I needed to work for myself. So I did work for my dad for a long time, but he gave me the ability to make it mine, right? To have ownership into it, to do what I needed to do, and then eventually buy the company from him. So I've just kind of been that guy that has to go his own way and didn't really follow the rules very well. We have 200 field employees. We've been doing that. This has been our mainstream of things: manufacturing, schools, retail, light industrial. We just recently, about 5 years ago, opened up and we expanded our building by about 13,000 square feet. And in true industrial division that does wastewater treatment plants and those kind of things. We have a UL listed panel shop that we build our own panels for. Sprint car racing was really good in Arizona. Starting to phase off a little bit around 15. But I wanted to win the Western World. I wanted to win the Oval Nationals. I was getting older. The business was really picking up. Thinking about getting hurt was starting to get through my brain, right? Those kind of things. So I called up Brady Short, and I just cold called him and I said, "Come out." We both ran. And then we went over to California, ran the Oval Nationals. So then the next year I decided to do that again. And then he had to leave. Something happened with his family. He had to leave from the Western World. And I called up Hunter Schoenberg and I flew him in and we went to the Oval Nationals, and I think we ran 7th or something like that. And just kind of the realization that we needed to step up our program, we need to get better equipment, and we probably need to get a better driver. in so that we could compete at a higher level. Then it was, all right, let's go out for SmackDown, let's go out for the midget week, and then eventually for sprint week, and then it turned into 2019 where we went full time and with CJ Leary and won the championship. We won every little mini series, dominated that year. We didn't win a lot of races. We only won 2 races, the first and the last race, but won the points series. And at that point, it was just an addiction, right? Like the winning, the knowing that we could be competitive at the highest level of non-wing sprint car racing just became an absolute addiction. It's a little bit different with your son in the car because you know how dangerous it is, how it can be. And when we first started, it wasn't intended for him to just go run midgets with USAC. We were going to go run the West Coast USAC deal and get our feet wet. But COVID came into play, and then all of a sudden there was nowhere else to go. So we just ended up going to Port City, and first qualifier out there, never raced anything in his life. And from there, I think it was just a matter of getting seat time, right? So we just raced him as much as we could, about 90 times a year, and gave them to the midget guys and just said, go, right? Any midget race we could find, anything we could do. And then we got into some sprint car racing with him, and he turned it over and hurt himself. And so we backed off that a little bit. But then, a couple years later, he's showed us that he's ready to do it, that he's ready to get into the big car, into the stuff. And I think it's the evolution of the sport, right? To me, it's like the midgets, it's kind of a kid's thing, and you got to get out of it and you got to move on to the big cars. So we're excited for him to run the midgets, but super also excited for him to get in the sprint car, which is kind of my forte, and the ability to work with him instead of, around him or the guys or the midgets that I don't really do that much with, to be able to have him kind of under the umbrella or my wing and be able to, give him some of the advice, that I've had, the experiences that we had, be able to set up the car for him. Is exciting to work with him. Mitchell's like one of my kids, honestly. They all are. I love all of them. But it's, it's blood. So it's going to be a good evolution. We fire that thing off for qualifying. There's going to be some prayers said for sure. There are times that you think, what am I doing? Why are we spending so much money, right? Like, this building's an asset. I can sell it, right? These things, you buy them and then you can sell them for half of what you bought them for. So, you think about the money that you spend, but then you go out there and you have the success, right? And success is measured in many ways. It's not always just winning. Sometimes something happens and you have to start 20th and you run it up to 5th. But really the biggest thing for me is just the culture of the guys, and when we're all pointed in the same direction and things are moving in a productive direction forward, and we're getting to see positive results come out of the night, right? And feeling to be a part of it. I'm not a typical car owner where I'm just gonna, write checks and show up and drink beer after the event. I got to be involved. Like crewing on the sprint cars is very important to me because I'm a competitive person, and I don't want to just be like, oh, I bought that win, right? Like, no, I helped get that car there, whether that was advice, whether that was a decision that was made, whether that was however we did it. You're influential into the win, right? So you're a part of the win, and I think that's huge. And that's probably if it wasn't for that, if I was just cutting checks, I wouldn't be doing it.